MSNBC. Decision 2020. Election night. Live from Democracy Plaza. Here now are Rachel Maddow and Brian Williams.
Here we go, 6 p.m. in the East, and we're underway. Americans have been voting for days, setting records, in fact, and they are still voting at this hour in what is a titanic struggle for the future of our country. It will now be decided during an uncontrolled pandemic in our country, which explains the 100 million plus votes that are already in. Brian Williams here with you from our NBC News Global Headquarters in New York, joined by my colleague and friend Rachel Maddow at the far end of our expanded studios. Rachel.
Thank you, Brian. Nicole Wallace and Joy Reid are here by my side at our corner of the studio as well, at a physical distance that belies our emotional closeness. I got to come up with a different one every night. Our election night MVP, Steve Kornacki, of course, is at the board, standing by for the first results, which are already starting to come in. Tonight, former Vice President Joe Biden back in his hometown, Wilmington, Delaware, after one final push through Pennsylvania, stopping in Philly and in Scranton, where he visited his childhood home. The former vice president started his day early this morning by going to church and then by visiting the grave of his late son, Beau.
While for his part, President Trump started his day by calling into Fox News, and aside from a brief stop at his campaign headquarters over in Virginia, the president has been largely out of view this day. Tonight, the president is huddled at the White House behind a new non-scalable wall where he is expected to host 250 to 400 people, as one does during a pandemic, at an indoor election night party in the People's House.
It is going to be a big night tonight, no matter what happens in the end. We are in for the long haul. We recognize that the long haul might not mean this evening in terms of getting results, but we will be here with you for it throughout. Let's get started now with the closest thing that we've got to a roadmap for the journey ahead. Steve Kornacki, we are going to be looking to you all night long. Let's start. What do you got?
Well, here we go. We will be getting some results, actually, we think this hour from Kentucky, from Indiana. All the polls not closed there, but some will this hour. But before that, let's take a look at what we can expect from tonight. So we'll fire up our Road to 270, our battleground map. Now, there are a couple ways to look at this. First of all, let's start with this. Are there any states tonight where President Trump is going to be on offense? What I mean by that is, are there any states that Donald Trump did not carry in 2016 that were Clinton states that he could pick off tonight and add to what he won in 2016? The Trump campaign has been talking about, remember these three tonight, New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Nevada. Clinton states in 2016, the Trump campaign has been saying they think they have a shot at. We got to say, coming into tonight, the polling we've seen before the election has not put President Trump in great position in those states. So the burden is on him tonight as these votes come in to show that he can make something happen that hasn't happened there in the polls. If he fails to pick off a New Hampshire, a Minnesota, or Nevada, then Biden's starting point tonight is where Hillary Clinton finished in 2016, 232 electoral votes. And then the question shifts, and it becomes, where is Joe Biden on offense? And the answer to that we already know. You are looking at the battleground here. You are looking at states that Donald Trump won in 2016, that he's trying to defend, and that the polls coming into today, to varying degrees, show him in trouble in. Can Donald Trump hang on to at least 270 electoral votes worth of these states? The most immediate problems on this map for Donald Trump, we've been saying this for a while: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, three states that he won by the skin of his teeth in 2016. Less than 1 point, his margin in each one of these states. If Donald Trump does not add any states from the Hillary Clinton column in 2016, if he doesn't pick off any tonight and he loses these three states, he loses the election. And he's in particularly tough shape, according to the polls, in Wisconsin and Michigan. If he were to lose just those two, he would be on the cusp of defeat. Trump would. That sets up the drama that we're going to see in the first few hours tonight, because this is the interesting thing about the pandemic election. As important as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are to this election, it's going to take a while to get the results there because of the mail-in ballot situation. In Pennsylvania, if it's very close, it could even potentially take a couple days. What we think we are going to get a good look at, though, starting at 7 o'clock Eastern tonight, just about all of Florida, except the Panhandle. We're going to start seeing a lot of votes out of Florida. We're going to get a really good look in the first couple hours in Florida about who is winning, who is losing there. Get North Carolina in the early hours. We should get a lot from Ohio, Georgia, potentially, even Texas a little bit later, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. We might get a good look at Texas. Every single one of these states, a big electoral college battleground, was won by Donald Trump in 2016 and really becomes, given what we just outlined here, the challenge he faces in the Great Lakes states, a must-win state for the president. If he does not pull off a Hail Mary pass and win Wisconsin, win Michigan, or flip any of those Hillary Clinton states, then he's got to go 5 for 5 in these states.
This is the scene outside Trump Tower in Midtown. You'll notice that there are NYPD sand blocker trucks here, these large, big pickup trucks outside of Trump Tower. It is because they expect that if there are to be demonstrations tonight, they could incur in front of Trump Tower, and they want to be able to shut down access to Fifth Avenue in the event of that. I'll take you across the street now, where there is a group of protesters, mostly people who support the president, who are here right now. They are gathering here. They've been here for about an hour now.
Yeah, let's talk about this first before I show you some of the numbers. It's the first wave of the exit polls. We're going to get more numbers over the next few hours, so some numbers are going to move around here. Obviously, exit polling is a little bit different this year. There certainly were folks out at polling sites today collecting interviews with folks who went and voted early, but there was a lot more this year in terms of exit polling of contacting voters in all sorts of states who had voted early, who'd voted by mail, who'd voted in person early, finding out who they were, calling them, including them in the exit poll. So there was a big effort placed in that. I'm going to show you just a couple national numbers about some broad things you're seeing here in the exit poll. I think this was an interesting question here, asking voters to choose between the two major themes here you really heard a lot about: controlling the coronavirus and rebuilding the economy. Which was a more important issue to you? And you're seeing here 52 saying containing the coronavirus, 42% saying rebuilding the economy. Again, national first wave exit poll. Take that for what it is. Also, there was this, time of decision here. We talk so much about folks having their minds made up well in advance of this election. I remember in 2016, we were saying, wow, 85% had their minds made up well before the last month. Again, you're seeing the same number here, 85% saying, no, it wasn't the last month of this campaign. It was well before the last month of this campaign.
Rick Wilson, you are one of the people that turned this into the structural race that it is, a referendum on Donald Trump, with your unyielding, unrelenting ass kicking of Donald Trump and his children and his campaign advisors, and everything about his presidency that felt so screwed up. What is the closing kick in the teeth from the Lincoln Project?
The closing kick in the teeth is that America is out there right now. They are in the streets. They have voted early. They have delivered their verdict. We are seeing that the turnout in a lot of Republican areas today is anemic. We're seeing that Democrats are coming out even on Election Day after having already kicked his ass on early voting. And, the judgment of the people is here. Today it's happening. No ad that we could make can convince people more effectively than what they're seeing in their daily lives every minute of the day. And they're seeing he mishandled COVID. He blew up the economy. He is a narcissist lunatic. They're done. They've finished. They're out. They're going to stay in line. And folks, stay in line if you're in line. But the folks that stay in line right now, they're standing there waiting in the heat and the cold and everything else across this whole country. They are determined to push this man out of office, and it's coming.
And here we go. Here's what we have for you at 7 p.m. These are all NBC News projections. Georgia, too early to call. Indiana, as expected, we are projecting Donald Trump as the projected winner there. Virginia, too early to call, though Biden is leading. In Kentucky, too early to call at this hour. South Carolina, too early to call at this hour. Vermont, up in New England, too early to call. Here is the long and arduous road to 270 electoral votes. Again, one state awarded. As expected, it went to the incumbent president. Give me, as I will ask every time we hear that sound, which means we have a call, and here it is. His first inroad into New England, as expected. Joe Biden has been awarded by our projection the state of Vermont.
NBC News is now projecting a winner in the Kentucky presidential race. President Donald Trump projected to be the winner in Kentucky.
In the state of Florida, if you've been watching our coverage, you know the state of conversation there. We are saying the race is too close to call, separated by just under 10,000. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, big race, big electoral vote fight tonight, too early to call. In the state of New Hampshire, too early to call. In my home state of New Jersey, Joe Biden, the projected winner of 14 electoral votes. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Joe Biden, the projected winner tonight. In the state of Maryland, Joe Biden, the predicted winner tonight. In Oklahoma, Donald Trump holds on to Oklahoma. In Delaware, native son Joe Biden is the projected winner. In D.C., where you can vote without representation in Congress, Joe Biden, the projected winner of the District of Columbia. In Illinois, too early to call is our call. In Tennessee, too early to call, though a lead by Donald Trump. In Missouri, too early to call. In Alabama, too early to call. Nutmeg state of Connecticut, too early to call, though we note a lead on the part of Joe Biden. Mississippi, too early to call. Maine, too early to call. Rhode Island, too early to call, though again we note a lead at this hour on the part of Joe Biden. Ohio, of the battlegrounds, remains too early. Georgia remains too early for us to call. North Carolina remains too early to call. Here is the long and winding road to 270. We have a projection, and that is a Trump victory as expected in the state of Tennessee with its 11 electoral votes. 8:23 Eastern Time. We come back from a break with two calls. The state of West Virginia, as expected, has been awarded to Donald Trump with its 5 electoral votes. And then the land of steady habits, as they call it, the nutmeg state of Connecticut, 7 electoral votes in the Joe Biden column. We'll show you where that leads us as the states color in on the road to 270 with awarded electoral votes thus far. Steve, forgive me. We are awarding the state of Arkansas, as expected, to Donald Trump. 6 electoral votes. That's where the vote is coming down as of this hour. And this is what this state does now to the map. You see red filling in the center of the country. News is projecting. Let's start with a big one, a big Northeast state with 29 electoral votes. NBC News projecting, as expected, Joe Biden will win in New York. We move on to Texas. We've been talking about Texas. We have it too early to call. Michigan, hugely critical state tonight, too early to call. Wisconsin, ditto, too early to call. Minnesota, too early to call. To the vital southwest state of Arizona, too early to call. Colorado, too early, though Biden, we note, is in the lead. Louisiana, too early, though Trump, we note, is in the lead. In Kansas, too early to call. Let's go through the Midwest. Nebraska, too early to call. Southwest to New Mexico, too early to call. On up to North Dakota, too early to call. Slightly south to South Dakota, too early, though we note Trump leading in South Dakota as expected. And Wyoming, too early to call. Donald Trump is in the lead in Wyoming. Let's check out the bar graph from the outback view of our building. The road to 270 electoral votes awarded thus far, 80 to 48 at this hour. Give the interruption another state call, and that is, as expected, Donald Trump the winner in South Dakota. Colorado, Joe Biden.
But basically, in Pennsylvania tonight, there are going to be some counties, in Philadelphia as an example, Allegheny is an example where they are going to end up reporting out some of their mail-in vote, I think, by the time we get to midnight, later on in the night. There are other counties, too, smaller ones. They will report out some of it. And then over the next couple of days, you'll get the rest of it. There are some counties as well in Pennsylvania where you're not going to get, folks in Beaver County. They haven't reported any votes here yet. The folks in Beaver County say they're going to report their same-day vote tonight. That's expected to favor Trump. He's supposed to do well in the same-day vote here in Pennsylvania. And then tomorrow, they're going to begin processing and reporting out their mail-in vote. And that's something that a number of counties in Pennsylvania have also said. So there are going to be some very, very jarring movements here, depending on the method that the county is using in Pennsylvania. So the overall picture when you're looking at Pennsylvania numbers right now is not much is in. Some counties are only going to report the votes that were cast today, which could be a small fraction of all the votes that end up getting cast in that county. Some counties are going to report the votes that were cast today, plus some of the mail that was cast today. So there's going to be a range of possibilities here. And in Pennsylvania, more than in other states, we are looking at just dramatic shifts between those two buckets of votes, where Democrats look like they are going to absolutely clean up in the mail vote in Pennsylvania, and Republicans are going to really clean up in the same-day vote. There's going to be huge disparities. So it's all dependent. When you're getting results coming in, whatever county you're looking at in Pennsylvania, it all depends what bucket the vote is coming from.
Some new calls. Let's look at North Dakota. And President Trump is the projected winner in North Dakota.
In Alabama, President Trump is the winner there. There's also a Senate race going on there. We'll check in with that in a few moments.
And looking at Florida once again, checking in there. It is too close to call, but Trump leads in Florida. And in Texas right now, too early to call.
This was expected. Donald Trump hangs on to the state of South Carolina.
Well, Shep, NBC News is now projecting that Democrats will maintain their majority in the House. Now, this is something that had been expected. The real question now is going to be how large that majority will be. We had heard from some top Democrats that they could expand their number of seats by anywhere from 10 to 12. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has not wanted to make any predictions. Perhaps she doesn't want to jinx it. But NBC News now projecting that Democrats will maintain their majority in the House.
So I'm very, very proud of the fact that tonight, relatively early, we are able to say that we have held the House. It is something quite spectacular because the people who helped us win were the people who have been affected by it.
We just got the votes from Maricopa County, Arizona.
Oh.
And this is a big thing in Arizona. When they report them out, they report a ton of them out. Here we go. We got over 2 million votes in Arizona. Okay. Biden leading here. It's about 3/4 of the vote in Maricopa County. Maricopa County is like 60% of the population for the entire state of Arizona. It's the Phoenix metro area. It's a giant suburb. Joe Biden leading this 54-45. Now, this was what you're looking at here are the early votes that were cast up until this weekend. These are going to come in Arizona. We're going to come in sort of 3 buckets of votes over the next few hours and maybe into tomorrow. The first things you're going to see here, they're going to be giant batches of votes like we're looking at right here in Maricopa County, almost 1.5 million votes. These are all, they've been doing early voting for a long time, mail voting for a long time, the last couple of weeks in Arizona. Everything that was cast up until about this weekend is what you're looking at right now. Okay, in the next batch, you're going to get same-day votes that were cast today. And in the third batch, you're going to get the latest arriving mail-in votes. There are going to be kind of 3 waves of votes here. This has been expected to be the best wave for Democrats. So, again, it's part of that story we're seeing in state after state. This likely to be Biden's high watermark in Maricopa and in Arizona. And, again, as Maricopa goes, often so goes Arizona. And then the question is going to be these subsequent waves. What does that do? But you're looking at this is often the ball game in Arizona. You got about 3/4 of it right there.
All right.
We have another call, and this is another New England state, and that is New Hampshire. And it's for electoral votes awarded to Joe Biden. We believe when all the votes are counted, differentiated by about 22,000 votes right now. Let's take a look at the map and see where this leaves us as we look nationally. We have have a call from the Southwest, and that is that Joe Biden has been awarded New Mexico and its 5 electoral votes.
NBC has now projected that in the great state of Missouri, President Donald Trump will once again be the winner in Missouri. Again, that is not a pickup for the Republicans. Missouri has been deep red and in the Republican column for some time now, but that Missouri call is now official in terms of NBC News' projection.
We are back. You'll note Missouri snuck in there before the break. Illinois has spoken. Neither of these are pickups. They're holds. This is Joe Biden, the projected winner of Illinois, and it's 20 electoral votes. And Senator Dick Durbin is going to remain in the U.S. Senate as well.
Democrats really, over the last 4 years, have really gotten their act together again. Remember that Supreme Court election that we had during the coronavirus, where people had to stand in line during the height of it? And there was a rather surprising result in that election. And I think that's the model that's been used here. So, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans absolutely dominated the get out the vote efforts and the early vote efforts here in Wisconsin. I remember that very well. I think that script has been flipped here. But again, the numbers you're seeing out of Wisconsin do not represent all of Milwaukee County. And frankly, that's going to be where the African-American vote is concentrated. Milwaukee County, Racine County, and Kenosha County. And I would be very surprised if you did not see a substantial increase from 4 years ago. And if Donald Trump cannot add to his margins outstate, and if he is losing votes in the crucial Milwaukee suburbs, places like Waukesha County, then I think it's going to be very difficult for him to win the state of Wisconsin.
Can I tell you what I have in my notes? Because all I've been doing is cramming for the last year, getting ready for tonight. My notes on each of these three states. Wisconsin, State Elections Commission chief says Wisconsin will probably not report unofficial results until Wednesday at the earliest. Pennsylvania, governor releases TV ad warning residents that will take, quote, a few days for the vote to be completed. Secretary of State says there is no way Pennsylvania is announcing a winner on election night. Michigan, Secretary of State says the count will likely take until Friday. Yeah. So that's Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which is what we are looking at.
Hi, everybody. Our election night coverage rolls on. It is 11 o'clock in the east, 8 o'clock in the west, and we have a bunch of results to report to you, including some poll closings. California just closed. Joe Biden, the projected winner there. Out west, Oregon, Joe Biden expected to win handily there. Oregon's 7 electoral votes.
Biden will sweep the Pacific Coast, as we're projecting that he will win in Washington, the state of Washington as well. Idaho, too early. Trump leads there, however.
We started the night talking about Florida. We'll start talking about Florida. It is too close to call at this hour, but the president is leading there. Republicans feeling good about that. In Texas, a similar story. It is too early to call, but the president has taken a lead in Texas.
We've been carefully watching North Carolina. That is still too close to call, but you see the numbers on the screen there. Also in Ohio, too early to call.
Let's go to Georgia. Democrats had high hopes here. It's too early to call. We'll see how that one shakes out. We've seen a couple of the Senate races advance to a runoff in January. In Virginia, it's too early to call, but Vice President Biden is leading in that race.
Let's take a look at a pair of the states in that blue wall the Democrats are hoping for. Wisconsin, too early. Pennsylvania, too early as well.
And in Minnesota, where there's been a lot of talk tonight about whether or not this one will flip. Right now, too early to call, but you see with the votes in the Vice President Biden with a lead there, and in Maine, where they have a ranked choice voting, so it could be a while. It's too early to call.
Not a whole lot of vote left in Arizona. We're watching that. It is still too early to call. However, Biden is leading in Arizona. Iowa, too early right now. And
let's go out west to Nevada. Too early to call. We'll keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, we got a big number here. NBC News is projecting Ohio will go in the Trump column when all the votes are counted. 53-45 race right now. That'll change. That'll fluctuate, but that is our projection. 18 electoral votes, a hugely valuable state in the Donald Trump column. The projected winner in the Commonwealth of Virginia is Joe Biden. So 13 electoral votes in his column, and let's put up where that leaves us on the road to 270 just to remind everybody. And then we'll talk to our friend James. 206 to 136 race right now. We have one more. Idaho to Donald Trump, your projected winner. That is no change from the 2016 map. James, you predicted a night over, done and dusted long before this. How do you view this fight? What's going on?
The first thing is every Democrat just put the razor blades and the Ambien back in the medicine cabinet. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Governor Granholm, my dear friend, said that Michigan is a red mirage. Pennsylvania looks really good. We're going to be fine in Wisconsin. I think a big surprise here is Georgia. Steve Fernacki did a really good job telling people what's out. So I hope that we would know earlier than we did. I think we're going to be just fine. I'm very optimistic. I've been talking to quants all night. People are rerunning the numbers, and we just have to hang in there. And we're going to win this little thing. I promise you. But just, stay up tonight, watch the returns. We're doing a good job. I have my Pappy Van Winkle in the back, and I think I'll be able to crack it open. Maybe not tonight as I hope, but I will crack that little puppy open before this is over. I promise.
Look at this. Sorry to interrupt. NBC News is projecting Donald Trump will be the ultimate winner in Florida, and it's 29 electoral votes. Running right now 51-2 to 47-8, separated by just shy of 400,000 votes in what has just become such a hugely valuable, influential, and for the Democrats, vexing state. As Claire McCaskill and others have pointed out tonight to soothe the anxieties of her fellow Democrats, this was never a projected Biden state. It was on the wish list. It was hoped for. You don't send Barack Obama into a state you don't want. But the candidate himself did not make it a personal priority, preferring instead to concentrate on that blue wall we've been discussing, the very same blue wall that may take days to determine this election result. But Florida, where our projection is concerned, is done and dusted for this cycle.
Good evening. Your patience is commendable. We knew this was going to go long, but who knew we're going to go into maybe tomorrow morning, maybe even longer. But look, we feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it's going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted. But we're feeling good. We're feeling good about where we are. We believe one of the nets has suggested we've already won Arizona, but we're confident about Arizona. That's a turnaround. We also just called it for Minnesota, and we're still in the game in Georgia, although that's not one we expected. And we're feeling real good about Wisconsin and Michigan. And by the way, it's going to take time to count the votes. We're going to win Pennsylvania. Yes. I've been talking to the folks in Philly, Allegheny County, Scranton, and they're really encouraged by the turnout and what they see. Look, we could know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer. As I've said all along, it's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and voted in this election. And by the way, Chris Coons and the Democrats, congratulations here in Delaware. Pardon? Hey, John, the Gov, yeah, the whole team, man. You've done a great job. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process. And I'm grateful to all of my supporters here in Delaware and all across the nation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And folks, you heard me say it before. Every time I walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, Joey, keep the faith. And my grandma, when she was alive, yelled, no, Joey, spread it. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The Fox News Decision Desk is calling Arizona for Joe Biden.
I think a lot of people still aren't totally sure about Arizona either. Some people think that may have been called a little too early.
I'm not certain I disagree with the call, but I think maybe it's a little premature. I'd be careful to understand how many more votes are out there. I'm confident the desk is doing that, but this is one where a little bit of caution might be useful.
I know other networks have called. We haven't, and I think we're very wise in doing so. I know this network takes that responsibility very seriously, as they should, and I'm very proud to be affiliated with that, because I think the call of Arizona, from what I'm hearing, is premature.
Arizona, are you 100% sure of that call and when you made it, and why did you make it?
Absolutely. We made it after basically a half hour of debating, is it time yet? Because it's been clear for a while that the former vice president is in the lead in Arizona and was most likely to win the state. It has been in the category that we call knowable but not callable for about an hour.
State call, one of the states you just ran through, and that is Texas. It turns out that Democrats, maybe some of them, spotted a blue mirage in some of the early numbers, and hope overcame facts in this case. Texas remains a red state under Donald Trump, and 52-46 and change is where we have the percentages right now. But here is how it affects the road to 270, because that is a chunk of electoral votes. That's a big hunk of red that now makes a south to north path up through the Dakotas for President Trump. No change here again, but still a big piece of political real estate. Another big piece of real estate on the map. No flip, no change. As expected, Donald Trump has won the state of Montana with its 3 electoral votes, just under 52, 44 for Joe Biden in Maine. Too early to call, but Biden is leading. Remember, there are all kinds of vagaries about the way Mainers vote in these elections. The congressional district divide, the ranked voting. You see Montana, we just flashed from stripes to solid red. Again, you can see the geographic path, Robert Gibbs, that the president is carving. But again, no changes here. It's a small one. It's a mighty one. And that's Rhode Island with its 4 electoral votes. Joe Biden has been projected the winner of Rhode Island. And just as regionalisms have changed and come and gone and developed over the past few election cycles, the Northeast, New England, has become, as you can see reflected on the map, dependable, safe blue ground.
Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, all these opportunities Joe Biden had potentially to score a win early that would just blow this map open. We're obviously in a different place right now. So let me look at it this way. Let me put up what happened in all of these undecided states in 2016. Just if everything stayed the same as let me see if we can get that up there. If everything stayed the same as 2016, I don't know why because I'm pressing the wrong button. If everything stayed the same as 2016, right now, as I said, we've had no flips. But if Nebraska 2 does flip, okay, that's an electoral vote to the Democrats. Where else would Biden be looking? We mentioned, let's see what happens in the Atlanta metro area if he can still pull something out there. You got that question of the outstanding ballots still in the mail in North Carolina. Well, that's an awfully big lead that Trump has right there. There's Arizona. this becomes probably the most direct path right now for Joe Biden. If he gets Arizona, and he had that first batch of early vote there that put him ahead. Now he's trying to withstand the Trump strength in the same day vote. But if Biden were to get this district in Nebraska where we almost have all the votes, if he were to get Arizona, you see that would bump him up 244. OK, take a look here. Wisconsin, as I said, we're expecting right now, if you look at the tally in Wisconsin, Biden's down and it is close and Trump is holding onto his strength in a lot of areas in that state. But let's see what happens in a couple hours. We're expecting Milwaukee County, and that's going to have a long way to go in terms of telling us the result here. If Biden were to get it, if he were to get over the top in Wisconsin, those three things, Wisconsin plus Arizona plus Nebraska Tuesday, hold on to Nevada, then at 254, Michigan would be the big one for him, the most immediate one, because Michigan's got 16. And if he got that, if Biden could pick off Michigan in this scenario, there it would be for him. It would be 270. Again,
we have a call on Nebraska 2. Steve Kornacki, that district with its one electoral vote, where we're reminded Donald Trump flew in and did a rally looking for that electoral vote. That was the famous evening. People had a 3-mile walk in the cold. That has been awarded to Joe Biden, correct?
Yeah, and there it is. We were just going through it. We can call it back up on the screen right here. This is Omaha metro area. And again, these are the same numbers we were just looking at. There's one update, I think, to come here, but there weren't too many votes left. This is a district Democrats felt very confident in because we've talked about the growing Democratic strength in suburbs, metropolitan areas. Donald Trump had carried this by just 3 points in 2016. Democrats were very confident they could get it this time. Barack Obama, by the way, back in 2008 when he beat John McCain, also carried this district. It had been Republican since then. It goes back to the Democrats, goes to Biden tonight. Democrats get their first electoral vote out of Nebraska in a dozen years. I mean, how about...
First of all, we are projecting the state of Iowa will go to Donald Trump when all the votes are in and counted. And more than that, Joni Ernst, it appears, is heading back. The state of Minnesota has been projected to go in the Biden column. It's late at night, but it happened. It got a little wobblier earlier in the evening than a lot of Democrats would have preferred. But as Claire McCaskill pointed out in her prediction that it would go blue, it went blue. That's the margin that we're working on right now, 53.5 to 46 and change. And here is where your road to 270 is, 220, 213. A Pulitzer Prize winning presidential historian and author John Meacham is part of our coverage at 1:42 a.m. Eastern Time. John, I'm sitting here thinking that other presidents and other candidates have gone to bed on election night and said, in effect, wake me when it's over, because we've had real barn burners. We haven't quite had the circumstances of tonight, and that's where you come in.
Well, this is not uncommon. Almost half the time in the modern era, from 1960 unto this hour, we have gone. Most of America, as Teddy White might put it, has gone to bed without knowing. 1960, 1968, 1976, 2000, 2004, and 2016. So this is not an anomaly. We're a ferociously divided country. One of the remarkable stories of this era is going to be the extent to which Americans were willing to change their minds. And the numbers right now suggest that some Americans were, but perhaps not as many as one might have thought experience would lead them to do at this point.
And the question then becomes, if Biden ultimately emerges narrowly, even if narrowly, as the winner, he then faces a country that is substantially Trumpist, right? That has, a bare majority of people who reject that, everything that comes with, including, caging children and stealing them from their parents and the, sexual harassment, et cetera, and all of that. But then a substantial minority that is okay with it or embraces it. And so, I just wonder what all of this says about us. I think as the rest of the world watches this happen all night tonight, I think it raises real questions about what America is at the end of the day, and whether what Trump is more like what the American character is than people ever wanted to admit.
Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it. So when you take those 3 states in particular, and you take all of the others, I mean, we have so many, we had such a big night. You just take a look at all of these states that we've won tonight, and then you take a look at the kind of margins that we've won them by. And all of a sudden, it's not like we're up 12 votes and we have 60% left. We won states, and all of a sudden, I said, what happened to the election? It's off. And we have all these announcers saying, what happened? And then they said, oh, because you know what happened? They knew they couldn't win. So they said, let's go to court. And did I predict this, Newt? Did I say this? I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots.
We're listening to the president speaking at the White House, but we got to dip in here because there have been several statements that are just frankly not true. The president going through some of the states, stating that he has prevailed in those states, naming Georgia, saying they're winning Georgia, or that they won Georgia, there's no way they'll catch us, that they're winning Pennsylvania, won Michigan. The fact of the matter is those states have not come close to counting all of their vote. There's still outstanding vote. Do we have a moment to go to Chuck? We'll keep our ears on this and promise to go back as news events warrant. But just can you explain why it is that it's not possible for anyone to say they've won in this particular state?
Right. So what we have here, first of all, 1.9 million votes have not been counted. Can I repeat? 1.9. That is 3 times the lead that Trump has. Okay, so that is way too many votes, number one. And as you can see, most of this is Election Day vote. We know the president had an advantage on Election Day vote, so we have gotten very little of the early and absentee vote. And then you want to throw in one more way of just seeing, let me just remind you of where we are with Philly. Half of Philly has not come in.
Let's go to Michigan. He said Michigan, that he's running up margins in Michigan, and we've won Michigan. So can you show us how much vote is left over in Michigan that hasn't been counted
As you can see, we've only gotten 2/3 of the vote in. This is actually, so there's just 303,000 difference here. Again, 1.8 million votes are left to be counted. Let me repeat, 1.8. Do the math. That is, it's 6 times, okay?
What about Wisconsin?
All right, so that, and as you can see, most of this is still same-day vote. So this is why Michigan, a lot of people are so bullish for the Democrats in Michigan the minute that vote comes in. And then Wisconsin, this is where, but it's tight, and it's 116, 81% is in. We're waiting for 700,000 votes. And trust me, with Milwaukee being one of the places, 116 is not enough there. And I'll just go you real quick here. Milwaukee, we still have less than half.
And notably, the president also talked about a group of people trying to disenfranchise the vote, winning everything. Let's listen in.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to join you in thanking more than 60 million Americans who have already cast their vote for 4 more years for President Donald Trump in the White House. And while the votes continue to be counted, we're going to remain vigilant, as the president said. The right to vote has been at the center of our democracy since the founding of this nation, and we're going to protect the integrity of the vote. But I really believe with all of my heart, with the extraordinary margins, Mr. President, that you've inspired in the states that you just described, and the way that you launched this movement across the country to make America great again, I truly do believe, as you do, that we are on the road to victory, and we will make America great again. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, President Trump, as we anticipated, falsely and prematurely declaring victory, saying that he won. He did not win. He has not won. The president falsely depicting the counting of votes as a fraud and an embarrassment. That is not what is going on. What is going on is the normal democratic process. Almost everything President Trump said in his declaration of victory was not true. It is true that he is ahead in the polls right now in Georgia and North Carolina. Whether or not Biden will ever catch up is a matter for Georgia and North Carolina and their election officials to decide. It is not true that he is winning Pennsylvania or winning Michigan or winning Wisconsin. They are still counting votes. They have literally millions of vote-by-mail ballots that those 3 states are counting. It may well be that President Trump ends up winning this election. That might be once the ballots are counted. But what President Trump just said was undemocratic and false and premature.
All right, welcome back. We have a projection, actually a call to make at 4:38 a.m. The state of Hawaii and its 4 electoral votes going to Joe Biden. He is the projected winner in that state. We just saw Steve talk about why that is important. Once again, Hawaii now being called for Joe Biden, winning there quite substantially, 65%.
Gentlemen, good morning to you both. Chuck, let me start with you because we were talking about Miami-Dade. What do you see as you dig through those numbers? What happened to Joe Biden there?
Let's talk about what happened there. I think it's super interesting. I've been doing this for 31 years, and I've never seen such a dramatic swing. But let's clarify something. Joe Biden won the Latino vote statewide in Florida. And if he would have performed at those same numbers that Steve just described in Miami-Dade, Donald Trump would still win because we lost white voters by a larger percent as well. So we can't lay this all at the feet of blame on Latinos. He underperformed across the board. And I'll say it again, Donald Trump won a majority of white seniors and a majority of white college educated. But there was definitely a problem in Miami-Dade. And I've been the Mexican redneck crying wolf around here for a long time about the Latino vote. So much so I wrote a book about it this summer outlining what we should be doing to start earlier in these Latino communities, building a narrative to push back on the socialism argument, but also meet people where they are. That Mr. Johnson actually talks about all the time, with people who look like our community, being in the community with PACs and leadership run by Latinos. There's not another woke white consultant that's going to save us or fix this problem.
You know, the promise of democracy is that every vote counts, and that has been the promise of democracy since 1787, and it's still the promise of democracy, and I intend here in Pennsylvania to make sure we keep that promise. So, as I said, counties continue to report results. And again, these results are coming in more slowly than they have in the past. So we have to be patient, but confident that these votes are going to be counted. They're going to be counted accurately, and they will be counted fully. The delay that we're seeing is a sign that the system is working. This is a new system. We went into effect with Act 77 last year, and there are 3 million millions of mail-in ballots that are being counted, and that takes longer than the way we used to do it with the stand-in in-person voting.
Big question for you. What congressional races are your sources talking about this morning?
A massively bad night for House Democrats across the board. Yeah. They were supposed to, and we talked about it, Eamon. They were supposed to gain 15 seats, 12 to 15 seats. Their metrics, not mine. They didn't. Their margins are going to get narrower. Kevin McCarthy had a big night in the House. And no matter who takes the White House, Eamon, Capitol Hill is again going to be a battleground for the next 2 years. So just it was something that we could all look forward to talking about over the next 2 years.
And more ballots have been counted. NBC News now projects that Maine goes to Biden. 3 of Maine's electoral votes. That is a split. There are 4 electoral votes. There's 1 congressional district that goes to Donald Trump. MSNBC's Ali Velshi is at the big board with a look at where things stand now. Ali, give us the very latest. Maine is the latest.
Good morning, Andrea. If Donald Trump had one of these, he might be a little less enthusiastic about calling it for himself. 228 in the Biden column, 213 in the Donald Trump column. You've just given 4 of those, 3 of the congressional votes in Maine to Donald Trump. So this is what we're looking at right now. There are 26 combinations of these gray states left for Joe Biden to win the presidency. There are 19 combinations left for Donald Trump. Now, let's take a look at how these are looking right now. We are still looking. You talked about all the states that we're looking for. Let's talk about the remaining vote in Nevada. 86% are in. We are still looking at a very large chunk of votes coming in the Las Vegas area, a little bit in Reno, but in Las Vegas, we're looking at, there's a difference of 60,000 separating them in Clark County, and we're still waiting for about 16% of the vote to come in. Let's take a look at a few other places where the vote is going to be important. In Georgia, again, the Trump lead there statewide is 101,000 votes. Seems like a lot, but let's take a look at where the remaining vote is. Again, it's in the Atlanta area, in Cobb County outside of Atlanta and DeKalb County outside of Atlanta, not Fulton County where Atlanta is, but between these two counties, well over 140,000 votes still to come in. And in those heavily African-American and otherwise more progressive parts of Georgia, that could swing toward Donald Trump. Pennsylvania, we've been talking about this for weeks. This is just one big counting problem. Pittsburgh, Allegheny County has started to give us some more results this morning, but we're still expecting something like 2 million votes in Pennsylvania. Many of those are early mail-in votes. Many of those are expected to break for Joe Biden.
And the U.S. Postal Service failed to meet a federal judge's deadline to permit a search for 300,000 missing mail ballots at postal facilities in key battleground states, including Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona. Federal Judge Emmett Sullivan had wanted the search done by Election Day. The Postal Service says it was done by last night, but doesn't say at what time. Joining me now, NBC News correspondent Jeff Bennett, who's been tracking all of this. So what's the latest?
Well, Andrea, there is a hearing that's ongoing right now, an emergency hearing, a status conference that Judge Sullivan set. And he made clear at the start of this hearing that he was not happy with the Postal Service, telling the lawyer for the U.S. Postal Service that someone might have to pay for this. And what he was talking about was the fact that this agency disregarded, entirely blew through a court-ordered deadline for postal inspectors to sweep postal facilities in some dozen states for roughly 300,000 ballots that cannot be traced. These are ballots that have scans showing that they were entered into the processing system, but there's no scan showing that they were sent out. Now, I've asked the Postal Service, where are these ballots? In what states do we know that these 300,000 ballots exist? The spokesperson for the Postal Service did not answer that question.
Who is on the path to 270? Based on what we know, without making projections, your answer is what?
Joe Biden has the more realistic path to 270 from here. Look, typically leads of the size that Joe Biden has in Wisconsin right now survive recounts. That's also likely to be true in Michigan. In the completed counties we've seen in Pennsylvania, Biden is running ahead of Hillary Clinton's numbers in important places like Scranton, even in kind of the northern rural tier of Pennsylvania. And we expect him to overperform in the suburbs versus Clinton in 2016, because that's the pattern that we've seen underway in other states. Georgia is going to be extremely close. Look, there's no question that Democrats suffered a catastrophic loss of support among Hispanic voters last night, which cost them Texas and Florida. But there was good news for Biden in these suburbs, and that could provide him with a path to 270 and potentially more.
Allie, I'm going to interrupt you right now because we have a call that we can make. And let me just confirm with control room. Are we ready to make this call? So NBC News can now say that Joe Biden is the apparent winner in Wisconsin, the apparent winner in Wisconsin. That would award him, if it does officially go to him, those 10 electoral votes. 99% of the vote in. Joe Biden, 49.4%. Donald Trump, 48.8%, a difference of 20,510 votes. There's still a little bit left to come in. The Donald Trump team has already said that they are going to demand a recount in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin will allow them to do that because they will be within 1%, the 1% margin in Wisconsin. That can't start, though, for at least another week. But again, for everybody, NBC News is now calling Joe Biden the apparent winner in Wisconsin.
That is not the view from the White House. Robert Gibbs, I'm reluctant to show this. I'll give you the gist of it. Donald Trump, just as we were coming on the air, claimed for electoral vote purposes, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the state of Georgia, and the state of North Carolina. Now, he's been there 4 years, but you don't claim states and then move them into your column. Phil Rucker makes that point on Twitter, saying there's no such thing in American democracy as candidates announcing they, quote, hereby claim victories. I actually looked to see if this was a spoof account. It sounds like out of Monty Python Holy Grail with hereby claiming things. But what do you make of how the president is acting and the extra challenges he's creating for what Joe Biden said his mission was today, to be a president for all Americans?
Well, look, I think this confronts many of the demons that Donald Trump hoped never to confront, and that was losing the White House. As you mentioned, the first candidate to lose to an incumbent to lose re-election since George H.W. Bush in 1992. And look, at some point in the very near future, he's going to have to give a concession speech. And those are never fun. Most campaigns never get around to writing them because, again, they're not great exercises in morale building.
Over 150 million people cast their votes. I think that's just extraordinary. And if we had any doubts, we shouldn't have any longer about a government of, by, and for the people. It's very much alive in America. Here, the people rule. Power can't be taken or asserted. It flows from the people. And it's their will that determines who will be the President of the United States, and their will alone. And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners. With all the votes counted, we have won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, virtually the same margin that President Trump won that state 4 years ago. In Michigan, we lead by over 35,000 votes, and it's growing. A substantially bigger margin than President Trump won Michigan in 2016. Michigan will complete its vote soon, maybe as early as today. And I feel very good about Pennsylvania. Virtually all the remaining ballots to be counted were cast by mail. And we've been winning 78% of the votes by mail in Pennsylvania. We've flipped Arizona and the 2nd District of Nebraska. Of special significance to me is that we've won with the majority of the American people. And every indication is that that majority will grow. We have a popular vote lead of nearly 3 million votes, and every indication is that will grow as well. Indeed, Senator Harris and I are on track to win more votes than any ticket in the history of this country that ever won the presidency and vice presidency. Over 70 million votes. I'm very proud of our campaign. Only 3 presidential campaigns in the past have defeated an incumbent president. When it's finished, God willing, we'll be the 4th. This is a major achievement. This is a major achievement. And it's been a long and difficult campaign, but it's been a more difficult time for our country, a hard time. We've had hard campaigns before. We've faced hard times before. So once this election is finalized and behind us, it'll be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans, to put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to one another, to hear each other again, and respect and care for one another.
Joe Biden making remarks there in Wilmington, Delaware, saying that it is clear that they're winning enough states to reach 270, not declaring victory, as Donald Trump sought to do last night, but talking about the margins by which he's ahead in the critical states of Wisconsin, saying we won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, making the strategic, I think, point to say that that is around the same margin, exceeds the margin that Donald Trump won the state by, saying in Michigan, we lead by 35,000 votes, again, bigger than what Trump won that state by. Interestingly, he said, I feel very good about Pennsylvania. A lot of questions out there still about Pennsylvania. And again, it's not Joe Biden's only path to the presidency. NBC News is projecting Joe Biden the winner of the key battleground state of Michigan. All of its 16 electoral votes go to Joe Biden. As we said, he is the one with the clearest path to 270. Let's see where that puts him. Look at here, another razor-thin margin for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. As this vote was coming in, the outstanding vote was very clearly, according to our own Steve Kornacki, in parts of that state that were favorable to Joe Biden. Another blow to Donald Trump's delusion, I guess, at this point last night, that he was the winner. And it may move us toward what Donald Trump and his campaign is talking about, which is a legal avenue. Once again, Joe Biden, NBC News is now projecting Joe Biden to be the winner of the state of Michigan.
Now for the facts, we turn to the one and only Steve Kornacki with the latest at the big board. Steve?
Yeah, all right, well, let's take a look here. The road to 270. You mentioned Michigan going to Biden late this afternoon, 253 for Biden. Where can we expect to learn something new from one of these states that's still outstanding? I would look tonight to Arizona. Let me show you what's happening in Arizona here with about 86% of the vote in. Joe Biden here leading by 93,000 votes statewide in Arizona. We expect tonight, probably sometime around 9 o'clock Eastern, we're going to get an update on the vote in Arizona. We think we're going to get a couple 100,000 votes potentially reported out of Maricopa County. That's the biggie. That's the Phoenix metro area. Oh, there we go. The camera wasn't there. That's the Phoenix metro area. That's about 2/3 of the state population-wise. And basically, the ballots that are still to come in Maricopa, and then there are some in the counties outside Maricopa, what they are the latest arriving mail ballots. They came in like a day before the election, or they were ballots that were brought in by voters, mail ballots that were brought in by voters on Election Day. So that's the very particular batch of ballots we're talking about there. And the question is just going to be, when we get that update from Maricopa County, the question is going to be, is Donald Trump making gains in that vote? Is he cutting into the Biden lead, or is Biden expanding the lead? Trump's got to show that that's a favorable batch of votes to him. If he's not able to do that, then Arizona is going to look very, very less promising for Trump, is what I'm trying to say. And again, the stakes there, if Biden does hold on and win Arizona, he'd move to 264, and that would bring up the next state to mention here, Nevada, because the margin right now in Nevada is 7,600 votes for Joe Biden. Nevada officials have told us that they expect tomorrow at noon Eastern time to announce most of the rest of their results, although there are some local reports out there that they may be speeding that up to tonight. So there's a little bit of confusion there. But sometime between tonight and noon tomorrow, we expect to find out most of the rest of the votes in Nevada. They have told us that those ballots are mail ballots. They are late arriving mail ballots, and they're provisional ballots, not same day vote. What's outstanding in Nevada, mail ballots that came in very late out there. So again, we want to see them start to report those out, see what the trend is. Are they favorable to Biden? Are they favorable to Trump? But that's what's outstanding in Nevada. And again, Biden up 7,600. If he holds on to that lead, gets Arizona and gets Nevada, that would be 270 electoral votes for Joe Biden.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
Biden campaign senior advisor Ron Klain is here with us now. Ron, thank you so much for making time. First of all, we're sorry to talk about you behind your back, but our perception here among us at MSNBC is that you guys haven't raised unnecessary expectations or unreasonable expectations, and things, as fraught as they may feel, are sort of going to plan in terms of how you are going to get to 270.
Yeah, Rachel, I mean, I appreciate what Nicole said as a very experienced campaign operative herself. We had a plan to win this race. It was a battle for the soul of America. There was no one in the Biden campaign who thought this would be easy. As Vice President Biden said today, only 3 times in a century has an incumbent president been defeated. It's super hard to do. And so we knew this was going to be a very, very difficult race. We focused on those 3 core Midwestern states, trying to also pick up Arizona, which it looks like we have done, holding on to the states that the Democrats won in 2016, and playing hard in some other states. I think we're going to be very close. Maybe we'll even win Georgia. So we've executed the campaign plan we had, and I think that when all the votes are counted, Joe Biden will, in fact, be the next president of the United States.
I want to turn now to a very special guest. The Trump campaign filed a suit today. They are suing the Secretary of State of Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, and she joins us now in our MSNBC special coverage. Secretary of State Benson, thanks for joining me.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm holding this brand new lawsuit. You are named as the defendant, Jocelyn Benson, in your official capacity as Secretary of State. I propose we begin with a lightning round so people can understand what, if anything, is impacted, and then give you time to give us a more lengthy consideration of the issues. But yes or no, does this suit change any of the counting process thus far that your state is doing?
Nope, it does not. We've got a transparent, secure, meticulous process. We're going to continue to count every vote and ensure that every valid vote is counted.
And yes or no, does this, in your view, change anything regarding the numbers you've provided to the press, which has begun calling some of these races, including NBC, projecting Biden winning Michigan?
Nope, it does not either. Again, we're continuing to count every vote. We trust our process, and we've been transparent, and we stand by the numbers, the process, and the hardworking election workers who've been tabulating every vote since the polls opened at 7 a.m. on Tuesday.
Well, it's not unusual for people to claim they won the election. I can think of that happening on numerous occasions, but claiming you win the election is different from finishing the counting. And what we're going to see here in the next few days, both in the Senate races and in the presidential race, is each state will ultimately get to a final outcome. And you should not be shocked that both sides are going to have lawyers there, both in these close Senate races and in the presidential contest. My personal view is it's none of the federal government's business how states decide to conduct their election.
Donald Trump already seeking legal interventions in several states before these final counts are in. So let's go right through the facts and the law. We're seeing new suits or moves by Donald Trump in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, where a court already has rejected one new Trump lawsuit. Other measures, though, may proceed, like this Wisconsin recount. But here's what we know from past cases. These moves rarely flip who wins a state unless the margins are well under 1,000 votes. So, just doing the math, I want you to keep that number in mind, 1,000, as you look at some emerging margins. Michigan, with 97% in, is what you see here, 16 electoral votes, 97% in. Trump's filed a lawsuit to stop the vote counting or take Wisconsin. Biden, the apparent winner, 99% of the votes in. But the margin, 20,000 votes. Now, let me be very clear. On the one hand, those are not some huge landslide. They look like tight margins. But precedent shows they are not tight enough to be reversed in a recount. Now, with all the recount talk in Wisconsin, let's look at just a recent example from that same state. 2016, there was a recount. It showed Trump defeating Clinton. And that recount only shifted 131 votes. That's why Wisconsin Republicans are skeptical tonight of what Donald Trump wants to do. Another similar situation in the same state, Wisconsin Supreme Court race, 2011. The challenger cleared a recount after losing by about 7,000 votes. Now, how many changed? 312. Now, cases where the recount did change the outcome, it can happen. If you remember Al Franken's 2008 race,
He was initially trailing by just 215 votes on election night. That did move as the recount proceeded, Frank, and ended up winning by about 300 votes. Now, again, remember what I said at the top. Under 1,000, maybe. Over 1,000, basically never. These are examples that just hinge on a few hundred votes. The Trump campaign is bringing legal challenges in states where the margin is well over 10,000 votes. That means for a recount to make a difference and not just take time, it would have to be a precedent-setting event, changing thousands and thousands and thousands of votes in a way we have, at least as far as history is concerned, never seen before.
We're going to go now to Gotti Schwartz. Gotti Schwartz is in Arizona, and specifically, you should know this. He is outside the county elections department for Maricopa County, which is downtown Phoenix. Now, we have been reporting tonight on new ballots coming in from Maricopa County that are giving us a lot of new insight into the potential matchup here between President Trump and Vice President Biden. But as you can see, Gotti's in the middle of quite a crowd there. Gotti, what's going on?
Yeah, and Rachel, it's going to be kind of hard to see just because we're not turning on our lights. We don't want to be a distraction out here, and there are a lot of people that are they have their emotions running extremely high. So anytime these lights come on, you see people running towards the cameras, and then they start screaming, and they've got bullhorns. So here's what's going on. It's very important that we show you what's happening outside of the Maricopa Election Center right now. You see that behind me? That's where they're counting those 400,000 ballots that are still outstanding that could really change the course of the entire election in 2020. They've got some sheriff's officers up that are blocking the entrance of the election center. We're going to walk this way here.
Stand up and to make sure we're fighting for what's right. Because God, you said stand for.
And one of the things that we've seen is right now they're kneeling in prayer. But one of the things that we've seen is them chanting very loudly, "Count that vote, count that vote." And then we've got poll workers that are coming off of shift, and the poll workers have to be escorted out by armed sheriff's deputies down those stairs and into vans and taken away from here. So this is the type of scene that we're seeing. We're going to get a little bit closer here. We don't want to get too close. A lot of people in the crowd are not wearing masks. We're keeping a respectful distance, but a loud and very boisterous crowd. You'll start hearing them start up here. And they're actually chanting, "Fox News sucks. Fox News sucks." The reason why they're chanting that is because Fox News called Arizona for Biden yesterday, and a lot of people are angry about that. We have not called Arizona. A lot of other organizations have made that decision not to call Arizona. It is much too close right now, but this is a scene outside of the Maricopa Election Center.
As all this news is coming in, most of it not seeming all that great for President Trump. Dana, you have some new reporting.
Well, I talked to a source familiar with President Trump's thinking who said that the president is down. Obviously tired, which is understandable, but not feeling all that great, despite the public bluster that we've seen and heard from his campaign, from his children, that the president is seeing what's happening. He is seeing that in some of these key states that will determine whether he is president or not, his lead is shrinking. Or if Joe Biden is ahead, notwithstanding what we just saw, this is before that just happened, it's just not looking that good for the president. And the sense from the source that I spoke to is that the president is starting to see this slip away. That's the mood of the president. Now, could that change like this with changes in the votes? Of course.
Good morning. I don't think that any of the lawsuits that we've seen so far are ultimately going to make a difference in the outcome. I think when you're behind in this kind of vote counting litigation, you have to sue and sue quickly because the clock is moving and you need to do something if you're behind. But they often lack merit, and the courts are going to reject them if they don't have merit. So, Pennsylvania has some issues, but even there, I don't think in the end the litigation will matter.
So the argument that we're hearing is to stop the counting of votes in Pennsylvania, but when you go to Arizona, it's continue the count, let's get them coming in, so because we think President Trump may be able to make up the difference there. What does that kind of incoherence, that dissonance between the White House argument mean broadly?
Well, the standard practice of lawyers in these cases is to make their arguments depending on whether they're ahead or behind. Sometimes you see the lawyers switch positions as the lead switch. This happened in the Minnesota U.S. Senate race in 2008, and as soon as the lead flipped from one side to the other, the lawyers switched their positions. What we're seeing now is this inconsistency at the same time across multiple states because the same candidate is behind in one place and ahead in the other.
So first to Pennsylvania. Let's go right there. Joe Biden has cut into Donald Trump's lead significantly. Around this time yesterday, Trump led by some 700,000 votes. Now with 89% of the expected vote in, Trump now leads by just over 164,000 votes, with a lot of mail-in ballots still being counted. We could look specifically at Philadelphia County, home to a lot of Biden voters. He currently leads by 60%, and we are still waiting for more than 244,000 votes from Philadelphia County. Biden is currently at 79%. Hillary Clinton won Philadelphia County with 82% in 2016. We're also waiting for about 80,000 votes from Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is located. Biden currently leads by 19 percentage points in that county. And over in Bucks County, the state's fourth most populated county, where unemployment rates and deaths per capita linked to COVID are some of the highest in the country. Trump currently leads by just over 3,200 votes, with 58,000 votes still expected.
In many places, everything is open to the public. We are poll watchers in many of these places. In places like Fulton County, the state has placed a monitor. And we've had investigators go out with many questions about how these ballots are being handled and move forward. It's frustrating. Time, when everybody else is done. Here's the other thing. Florida has more to count than we do, but their margin's wider, so it doesn't matter as much. We have a much smaller margin, and we're aware of that fact, and the county elections officials feel that pressure. They understand. They are working hard. My hats are off to them having to go through this process and be under this level of scrutiny.
Right. Pennsylvania's going to be fine. Biden's going to win the 100,000, more than 100,000 votes. I'm keeping my eye on Georgia right now because I think they're going to have a county in by noon. And it's going to, the betting market seems to be very optimistic about it. So I'm going to be watching that closely. Arizona's done. Nevada's done. You know, this is, at the end of the day, this is not going to be a particularly close election. Biden will win the popular vote by more than Bush did in 2004, Obama in 2012. He will probably, not certainly, but probably end up with 307 electoral votes. I think Bush had 286 in 2012. And the popular vote is just going to keep going up. It's just going to keep going up. So I know it's been nerve-wracking for a lot of people, but it's not that close. It really isn't.
We'll make sure that we continue the pressure.
Actually, you're looking at behind me. That's Matt Schlapp. That's Rick Grinnell. Come with me, the former DNI. Come with me. Come with me. This is the Trump campaign press conference. Oops, sorry, kids. Come this way. Hey, Rick Grinnell, we're live on MSNBC right now. Can you talk about the evidence? You are claiming thousands of illegitimate votes here in Nevada. What's the evidence?
You should go in and ask the question of the clerk.
No.
Which you haven't done
yet. You guys
yet,
just made the claim. No, in fact, you also said there's no election observers. There's Democratic and Republican election observers inside, Mr. Grinnell. Former DNI Grinnell, acting DNI. Where's the evidence of the fraud? You haven't presented any evidence of fraud.
Where's the evidence?
They've presented no evidence of fraud, Craig. So we're live on MSNBC. You've said thousands of illegitimate ballots. Thousands of illegitimate ballots. Where are they? Where's the Matt Schlapp? Where are the illegitimate ballots? Where are the illegitimate ballots?
Fox News sucks.
So thousands of illegitimate ballots is what they're alleging. They've presented literally no evidence of that, and they're saying go to the county here to ask them of that. We know for a fact there are Democratic and Republican election observers inside. Careful behind you there. And the reality is, Craig, what they have said here is supported by virtually no facts. From what we have seen on the ground here, inside this facility, there is observation happening. I spoke to an election observer this morning, and they have now said they are filing in federal court a lawsuit to stop counting of ballots. They didn't say all ballots. They said stop the counting of improper ballots. So at the end of the day, we're going to need to see, as a matter of fact, what the language in that lawsuit says. They have the former attorney general of this state, Laxalt, out here as well. And you just saw former acting DNI Grinnell, Matt Schlapp, very familiar names out here in Nevada and across the country. But again, presented without evidence allegations of fraud here on the ground in Nevada as the count continues inside, and the vote margin is 8,000 votes at this point, when we expect a new dump of votes in just a little bit.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that in Pennsylvania, we have hundreds of lawyers, mostly volunteer lawyers, on the ground. They're fighting hard, and they have been since before Election Day. So no worries that we are short on resources there. This morning, the Court of Appeals there in Philadelphia ordered the Philadelphia elections officials to allow Republicans access to witness how the ballots are being handled. And Philadelphia election officials are in contempt. They are ignoring that court order and going on with the counting without Republican election monitors there to witness it. And the kind of shenanigans that can occur there, by the way, in Philadelphia, you have election workers with Biden-Harris 2020 masks on, and they're the ones who look at ballots and they see if a ballot is defective in some way. They may fill it in or fix it, and there's nobody on the Republican side to witness it. And because that election is so close and because the president's lead is declining, that is where we could lose it. And it is an outrage that those people are in contempt of court. And meanwhile, we're waiting for the United States Supreme Court, of which the president has nominated 3 justices, to step in and do something. And hopefully Amy Coney Barrett will come through.
Conspiracy theories are swirling across social media today. In Arizona, where the race is still too close to call, many Republican ballots were supposedly declared invalid because voters were given Sharpies like the kind President Trump likes to use, and the ink bled through. It's being dubbed Sharpiegate. But today, the Arizona Secretary of State is quashing the rumors as completely false.
That is just absolutely not happening. Every ballot that is cast by an eligible voter is going to be counted. It doesn't matter what pen you use. I've spent way more time yesterday talking about markers than I hope to ever spend.
All Trump. Another widespread conspiracy theory stems from video of Trump ballots in Virginia Beach allegedly being burned. The video, retweeted by Eric Trump, was first posted by a QAnon account. Trump. But the burned ballots turned out to be samples only. How do we know? They are missing the barcode markings that are on all official ballots. And outrage over this side-by-side elections map of Michigan that suggests Joe Biden suddenly received more than 138,000 votes.
You have 138,000 votes that magically appear that are all 100% Biden votes.
100% of the ballots, 100% of anything ought to make you nervous because it's probably a crock. And that does not seem believable to me. Jen Ellis,
Very suspicious. Thank you, Tucker.
You think? 100%? It's 100%. Yeah, okay.
But it was cleared up almost immediately by the county's elections clerk, who said there was an extra 0 that got typed in, but it was caught quickly. In Nevada, the Trump campaign put forward 79-year-old Las Vegas resident Jill Stokey, who is partially blind. She says she was turned away when she tried to cast her ballot on Election Day.
I went to vote and was told I already voted. I pursued the matter, and in years past, I always voted in person. This time, they mailed out the ballot, and somebody took my ballot.
But officials are questioning her account.
I personally dealt with Ms. Stoke. She brought her claim to me. We reviewed the ballot, and in our opinion, it's her signature.
Let's listen in.
Senator Harris and I just completed briefings on both COVID and the economic crisis facing this nation. And we're reminded again of the severity of this pandemic. Cases are on the rise nationwide, and we're nearing 240,000 deaths due to COVID. And our hearts go out to each and every family that has lost a loved one to this terrible disease. In America, the vote is sacred. It's how people of this nation express their will. And it is the will of the voters, no one, not anything else, that chooses the President of the United States of America. So, each ballot must be counted. And that's what we're going to see going through now. And that's how it should be. Democracy is sometimes messy. It sometimes requires a little patience as well. But that patience has been rewarded now for more than 240 years with a system of governance that's been the envy of the world. And we continue to feel, Senator and I, we continue to feel very good about where things stand. We have no doubt that when the count is finished, Senator Harris and I will be declared the winners. So I ask everyone to stay calm, all the people to stay calm. The process is working. The count is being completed, and we'll know very soon. So thank you all for your patience, but we have to count the votes. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for equating us with Pennsylvania. Our little state will be happy. Listen, there still are a lot of ballots out in Nevada, and there's been some conflicting reports, which I've just managed to clarify. I think there are a little under 200,000 ballots left in the state, but most of them, almost all of them, maybe as many as 175,000 are from Clark County, which is the Democratic stronghold here in Nevada, and where Joe Biden has done very well. Those mail ballots up until the election day, Nicole, went more than 2-1 for the Democrats. So it's almost impossible to see any way for Trump to make up even the relatively small deficit of 11,400 votes in Clark County with those mail ballots. There was a batch of them released this morning, about 14,000, and Biden won those 2-1. There's no reason to believe that trend is going to change that much with the other 150, 160,000, whatever's left.
We're going to go right to the president.
Good evening. I'd like to provide the American people with an update on efforts to protect the integrity of our very important 2020 election. If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly, but a lot of votes came in late. I've already decisively won many critical states, including massive victories in Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio.
Okay, here we are again in the unusual position of not only interrupting the President of the United States, but correcting the President of the United States. And Ari Melber, don't go far. Given that you are our chief legal correspondent, there are no illegal votes that we know of. There has been no Trump victory that we know of.
That's right. Brian, we just heard the president come out pretty remarkable. As you said, he said, quote, according to the legal votes, he believes he wins. That's false. The legal votes, if you want to use that term, or the votes that have been lawfully apportioned, meaning what we've been following in each of these states, do not show that. They actually show what we found, which is some states going in both directions, no one to 270.
Rick Santorum.
No Republican elected official is going to stand behind that statement. I mean, none of them will. They will stand behind elements of that statement. They will stand behind his comment about the polling and how you could make the argument that it was suppression and dishonest. I mean, you can stand behind the lack of transparency when it came to allowing the votes to be counted. There's evidence of that, and he provided some evidence for that. There are certain things they will stand behind in that statement because they reflect the reality. But much of that statement was not factual and was at times incendiary and not something that President of the United States should say or any elected officials.
But I want to take you through both of them because we're getting vote updates in Georgia and Pennsylvania. And let's just give some clarity to what we're looking at here. And first of all, in Georgia, Donald Trump's lead fell in the last hour under 10,000 votes against Biden. The big thing here that happened was Fulton County, where Atlanta is. We got pretty much their final votes reported out. It brought that Trump lead under 10,000. And Democrats, Biden supporters, were much more likely to use the absentee ballot, the mail ballot, than Republicans were. And so this is the story in Pennsylvania on a sort of a normal election night. All right, I would be telling you like, oh, Cumberland County, outstanding votes. There's a chance for Trump to make up ground. There's a chance for Trump to gain votes. That's not happening here. Everywhere there is outstanding mail vote in Pennsylvania, Biden's winning it. The only question is by how much. And he's forward. And we actually got just another update that's pushed Biden's lead over 1,000 now statewide. 1,096 is the new Biden lead. Now, again, like Pennsylvania, overnight there was one place in Georgia that has continued to count. It is Clayton County. And here you go. You can see it overwhelmingly Democratic, Clayton County. This is in the Atlanta metro area. Biden winning the lion's share of the vote here. They've had several thousand of these absentee ballots, mail ballots that they have been working through overnight. They've provided, I think, 7 or 8 different updates. Now, there was a big one about an hour and a half ago, I would say, when Biden took the lead statewide in Georgia because of that update.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is on the cusp of possibly being declared the next president of the United States. Part of the Trump era has been marked by the president's relationship with right-wing MAGA media, especially his favorite cable channel, Fox. And we bring in our media reporter, Brian Stelp, right now with some breaking news about the decisions being made at Fox about the fact that there is no credible evidence of widespread fraud and that it looks as though Joe Biden is about to become the president-elect. Brian, what are you learning?
That's right. 2 memos obtained by CNN from 3 different sources all around Fox News say that when Joe Biden reaches that point where he crosses the threshold of 270, Fox will not identify him as the president-elect. Now, Jake, other newsrooms are working through this right now, all preparing for this possibility, and president-elect is the common language that would be used in any situation like this. However, these memos at Fox News say they will stay away from that description. These memos direct Fox stars, anchors, pundits, talk show hosts to avoid language like president-elect because of the president's legal challenges.
Donald Trump is playing catch-up in Arizona. He's trying to erase this lead that Joe Biden has statewide, 43,569 votes. We came into today with several 100,000 votes still to be reported from across Arizona, but the bulk of them in Maricopa County. And the pace that Donald Trump needs to be on to overtake Biden statewide is to be winning 59% of all remaining votes. Now, for the last day and a half or so, we've been getting reports from Maricopa and from all these other counties, and Trump has been on that pace. He's been right on the pace he needs to get to catch Biden in the statewide count. Now, Democrats had come into today saying, hey, the ballots that you're going to see this morning from Maricopa County are going to be more favorable to the Democrats than the ballots that we have been seeing to date. If that's the case, Trump's not going to be hitting 59%, and suddenly he's not going to be on pace to catch Biden statewide.
Philadelphia showed up.
Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney speaking this afternoon for the first time since the election from inside the Pennsylvania Convention Center. That's where workers are still counting mail-in ballots.
Do you have my thanks? And the thanks of the people of this city.
The city commissioner's office says about 338,000 of Philadelphia's votes were mail-in ballots.
This is by far the largest number of mail-in ballots in the city's history.
While Trump won Pennsylvania back in 2016, poll watchers believe this election's surge of mail-in ballots, in particular from deep blue Philadelphia, helped shift the rest of the Commonwealth back to blue.
So this is something that we expected all along. There was going to be this blue shift, as the academics call it, where as mail-in votes are processed and scanned, there's a seemingly change in the result.
President Trump's campaign sued to stop Philadelphia from counting its mail-in ballots Thursday, but a federal judge denied the request. Now, with Joe Biden's lead widening in Pennsylvania, Philly's mayor believes the former vice president has already won the White House.
I think what the president needs to do is, frankly, put his big boy pants on. He needs to acknowledge the fact that he lost, and he needs to congratulate the winner, just as Jimmy Carter did, just as George H.W. Bush did, and frankly, just as Al Gore did.
We've just gotten in some new numbers. Where are these numbers from?
So we just got a big bunch of votes in Nevada, and you can see what they did. Joe Biden's lead, which sat at 11,000 the last time we checked in statewide, has basically doubled. Joe Biden now leading by 22,076 votes in Nevada. What happened here? Well, we talked about this. Clark County, Las Vegas area, by far the biggest county in the state. They just reported a big bunch of votes, a little bit under 30,000 of them. And Joe Biden got 68% of them.
Mitt Romney's statement, because a number of Republicans, Lindsey Graham, for instance, have been backing the president in his charges now, certainly after fierce attacks against Republicans who don't fight fiercely for the president by the president's sons and others in his orbit. But now you've got Mitt Romney, with whom you work with, of course, saying that the president is, of course, within his rights to request recounts, to call for investigation of alleged voting irregularities where evidence exists, and to exhaust legal remedies. Doing those things is consistent with our election process. He is wrong to say that the election was rigged, corrupt, and stolen. Doing so damages the cause of freedom here and around the world, weakens the institutions that lie at the foundation of the republic, and recklessly inflames destructive and dangerous passions. That's the strongest statement yet from any member of the Senate.
Right. But look, I think there is still a split within the Republican Party on how to react to the president's remarks last night. I think, and I think clearly the folks who are supportive of the president and believe that we need to fight that they need to fight this to the bitter end, they clearly outnumber those that are more from the traditional wing, like Mitt Romney, who believe that the process has to play out. So
Look, Joe Biden is going to be the president-elect of the United States. And frankly, every leader of every network decision desk knows that the math is an impossibility now for Donald Trump. He cannot be elected president of the United States. There is no path for him to be elected when you look at the counties and where the votes are from that are outstanding. And so we are in this hour where I understand the caution, but by the standards of all of the networks and all of the news organizations, including through how the first 35 states were called in this election, at this hour it is clear, and these races should be called.
Sure. So the president today, we did not see him in person. That was deliberate on the part of his aides and advisors, who largely agreed that what he did Thursday night, that torrent from the briefing room of falsehoods and baseless accusations that the election is somehow fraudulent. They thought that was a problem, and they managed to keep the president out of public view. He did release a public statement where he said he was going to be fighting, and behind the scenes, we know he was calling aides and advisors and urging them to get out on TV and defend him. He had said there was some dawning that this was going to be tough. He described it as an uphill fight to confidants, but a fight he thought he could win. But while all of that was going on, we also found out that, you know, a group of advisors close to the president yesterday and today have finally broached with the president himself this notion that the reality is he very well may not win. In fact, it looks increasingly likely that he will not win. And they are trying to get him to a place where just about everyone we talked to said, this is Donald Trump. He's not going to give a traditional concession speech. He's not going to do that thing where you are gracious and magnanimous and you welcome the next person into the White House and you show up and you clap politely at their inauguration. But they're trying to get him to a headspace where he doesn't necessarily say, quote unquote, I lost, or admit defeat, but does at least commit to, in some form of public remarks, a peaceful transition of power.
And the effect has been Biden's lead goes up again. 16,784 is the statewide lead for Joe Biden now. Again, these continuous incremental climbs for Joe Biden as this vote comes in from parts around the state, up to 16,784 right now.
So I think what we're seeing is a growing divide between what the president and his campaign are saying publicly and what a lot of the people around the president are telling each other and telling him privately. So what we've been hearing is that in the last 24 hours or so, a growing number of aides have talked privately to the president and amongst themselves about the fact that he needs to really prepare himself for the prospect that he may lose or is likely to lose this election. We have also, the legal effort is continuing. The Trump campaign put out a statement from the president today saying that he intended to fight till the very end, essentially. But I think what aides are really realizing, and some are telling him, is that no matter how many legal challenges they mount here, it's not going to be enough to overcome the number of votes by which he lags Joe Biden.
My fellow Americans, we don't have a final declaration of victory yet, but the numbers tell us it's clear, tell us a clear and convincing story. We're going to win this race. Just look at what has happened since yesterday. 24 hours, we were behind in Georgia. Now we're ahead and we're going to win that state. 24 hours ago, we were behind in Pennsylvania, and we are going to win Pennsylvania. And now we're ahead, but we're winning in Arizona, we're winning in Nevada, and in fact, our lead just doubled in Nevada. We're on track to over 300 electoral college votes. And look at the national numbers. We're going to win this race with a clear majority of the nation behind us. We've gotten over 74 million votes. Let me repeat that, 74 million votes. That's more than any presidential ticket has ever gotten in the history of the United States of America. And our vote total is still growing. We're beating Donald Trump by over 4 million votes. And that's a margin that's still growing as well. One of the things I'm especially proud of is how well we've done across America. And we're going to be the first Democrat to win in Arizona in 24 years. We're going to be the first Democrat to win Georgia in 28 years. And we've rebuilt the blue wall in the middle of the country that crumbled just 4 years ago. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, the heartland of this nation. I know watching these vote tallies on TV moves very slow, and as slow as it goes, it can be numbing. But never forget, the tallies aren't just numbers. They represent votes and voters, men and women who exercise their fundamental right to have their voice heard. And what's becoming clear each hour is that record number of Americans of all races, faiths, religions chose change over more of the same.
NBC News has confirmed a story, I believe, that was broken by Bloomberg tonight, that Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, few people are any closer to him in the orbit. He was up in the residence for election night, is COVID positive again. This is Mr. Meadows' health aside, and we hope for the very best. This adds to the visual of a president trying to operate independent of the greatest mass casualty event in modern times.
In Allegheny County right now. Rich, thank you so much for being with us today. I know it's been quite a week for you. What can you tell us? What's going on in Allegheny County right now?
Well, it's going in the right direction. Allegheny County outperformed 4 years ago by about 40 to 50,000 votes. Hillary Clinton won it by 108,000. It looks like Joe Biden's going to win it by around 150,000. And even in the counties surrounding us, the rural counties, he ticked it up just a little bit. He cut the margin maybe a half a point to a point and a half. He also did a lot better in Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, Erie County. And yes, we're running about 80% to 20% on our mail-in ballots. And I'm guessing the provisionals will probably run a little less, maybe 75-25.
After 4 long, tense days, we've reached a historic moment in this election. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. We're able to make this projection because CNN projects Biden wins Pennsylvania, the former vice president, in his third run for the highest office, pulling off a rare defeat of a sitting commander-in-chief. With this victory, Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and the first person of color to be the vice president. Again, CNN projects Joe Biden will become the 46th president of the United States. And Jake, he is now President-elect Joe Biden.
It is just past 12 noon on Saturday, November the 7th, 2020. Joe Biden has just been declared the next president of the United States. He will be the 46th president of the United States. A man who, at the age of 29, was elected to the United States Senate. But before he could even be sworn in, lost his wife and a child in a tragic car accident right before Christmas. Biden did not want to go to the Senate. He did not want to be sworn in. He wanted to stay with his two boys who had also been severely hurt in that accident. Ted Kennedy talked him in to moving forward with his life, told him to come to Washington, D.C. It would help him move forward, much like it was George H.W. Bush who encouraged James Baker to get involved in politics to move past the loss of his wife. Joe Biden took Ted Kennedy's advice. He went to Washington, but as Mike Barnacle said, every night he would return home on the Acela, and he would return home to make sure that nobody else was taking care of his boys. He wanted to be the one that read them to sleep at night. He wanted to be the father they would wake up to in the morning. He wanted to be the dad who would play catch with them in the afternoon. And Joe Biden kept making that train ride every day that he could back home to Wilmington, Delaware. John Meacham, I'm reminded, Mike Mimley talked about poets and Joe Biden's favorite poets. I'm reminded of when we spoke of Beau Biden's passing after it happened. I quoted Bobby Kennedy from April 4th, 1968, something that you've spoken beautifully about on your podcast. And Kennedy's quote of Aeschylus, his favorite Greek poet. And Joe Biden took this to heart, and it's something we talked about on the show. Aeschylus wrote about 500 years before Christ's birth, "He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart. And in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God." And Joe Biden knows that awful grace better than anyone. But when you see these moments on a campaign trail where he goes up and he hugs somebody who has lost a father or who has lost a child, when he speaks to Gold Star parents, he has that extraordinary connection and that almost superhuman empathy because he has suffered so much in his life. And he uses that suffering to apply that grace of God to others.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
That is extremely troubling. First of all, for the state of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then for a number of other states.
And of course, there was this incident on Saturday morning. You may have heard about it. The election had not yet been called when the president tweeted, "Lawyers press conference at Four Seasons, Philadelphia, 11 a.m. A few minutes later, he followed that up with a clarification, "Four Seasons Landscaping." 2 minutes after that, he deleted the first tweet and started over, quote, "Big press conference today in Philadelphia at Four Seasons, Total Landscaping." Oh, that Four Seasons, of course. He means Four Seasons Total Landscaping, located just down the block from Fantasy Island Adult Books and Video Store and across the street from the Delaware Valley Cremation Center in far north Philly. Now, there is, of course, a mystery that hangs over all this, which is how the press conference came to be held at Four Seasons Total Landscaping in the first place. One could imagine a situation where the president or one of his advisors barked at an aide to book the Four Seasons, only to have that person call up the wrong Four Seasons in Philadelphia. New York Times reports the mistake was not actually in the booking, but in a garbled game of telephone on the other end. Rudy Giuliani and Trump campaign advisor Corey Lewandowski told the president on Saturday morning their intended location for the news conference, and he misunderstood, assuming it was an upscale hotel, according to multiple people familiar with the matter. So reporters from all over the world showed up at the Four Seasons Total Landscaping right off Route 95 for a press conference with the president's legal team. As they set up in the parking lot, the major news networks called Pennsylvania and the presidency for Joe Biden. Some of the journalists started to leave. The race was over just when the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, showed up. He recited a few unsubstantiated claims about dead people voting in Philadelphia in front of a garbage door covered in Trump posters. You almost couldn't tell he was at the Four Seasons Total Landscaping, except for the big yellow reel of hose off to the side.
Changed his plans for the day. The president is still on the golf course at his golf club in Sterling, Virginia. You see some video of the president playing there. And the White House tells us, of course, we've been asking them, does the president plan to address the nation in some fashion today? And so far, the White House is saying we have no scheduling changes to announce. Of course, because the president is there in a golf cart, his team has not had the time to sit down with him to talk about what he wants to do.
NBC News is now projecting Joe Biden as the winner of Nevada. 6 electoral votes in Nevada. The electoral vote victory by Joe Biden continues to increase at this hour.
There's all that discussion in advance, and we're now seeing the president, saying that Biden hasn't won and he secretly won by a lot by some magic means that we can't understand. But there's a great distance for me between what I expected to be the impact of those words from the president and what they feel like today. I thought it would be scary, or at least it would feel like it was sort of shaking the foundations of the republic a little bit for the incumbent president, who still is the commander in chief of the military, who still commands the executive branch of the United States government, for him to defy an election result and say, no, 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 I'm still president. I thought that would be big and ominous. And now Trump's, in fact, doing it with Biden as president-elect. And it just feels laughable. It just feels small and pitiful and irrelevant. And I mean, he's at his golf course. Of course he is.
Talk about there's so much history in all this. Kamala Harris to become the first woman of color as vice president of the United States.
It's an historic day for that reason as well. Senator Kamala Harris becoming the first black woman to serve as vice president-elect. And so we are told that when Biden addresses the nation, if that does in fact happen this evening or later on today, she will be there with him. She will also make remarks. And so she will speak to the historic nature of this moment. And as you all were talking about there at the desk, Biden really framed this campaign as a fight for the heart and soul of the nation. And she certainly was a part of that messaging, that this is a new moment in American history, and they were hoping that would resonate.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So, thank you. Good evening. So, Congressman John Lewis, before his passing, wrote, "Democracy is not a state, it is an act." And what he meant was that America's democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. To guard it and never take it for granted. And protecting our democracy takes struggle, it takes sacrifice, but there is joy in it. And there is progress, because we, the people, have the power to build a better future. And it is now my great honor to introduce the President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been not able to do when we've done it together. Folks, in the last days of the campaign, I began thinking about a hymn that means a lot to me and my family, particularly my deceased son, Bo. It captures the faith that sustains me and which I believe sustains America. And I hope it can provide some comfort and solace to 230,000 Americans who've lost a loved one to this terrible virus this year. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. Hopefully this hymn gives you solace as well. And it goes like this. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, and make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. And now together, on eagle's wings, we embark on the work that God and history have called upon us to do. With full hearts and steady hands, with faith in America and in each other, with love of country, a thirst for justice, let us be the nation that we know we can be. A nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed. The United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, there's never been anything we've tried we've not been able to do. So remember, as our grandpapa used to say when I walked out of his home when I was a kid up in Scranton, he said, "Joey, keep the faith." And our grandmother, when she was alive, she yelled, "No, Joey, spread it. Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops." Thank you, thank you, thank you.
NBC News has projected President Trump as the winner of the state of Alaska.
Since Election Day, the pace has picked up, and judges have dismissed another 7 cases that the Trump campaign brought in these states: Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. So that's quite the one-loss record.
In the state of Georgia, where there's currently a hand recount being done, Joe Biden is the apparent winner. Again, Joe Biden, the apparent winner in Georgia. We use the word apparent when results could change, such as in a recount, although it's not expected that Donald Trump is going to make up that deficit in Georgia. Also, in the state of North Carolina, another state that we had been waiting on, we can now say that Donald Trump is the winner of North Carolina, the projected winner of North Carolina. This gives Donald Trump 15 electoral votes. But Joe Biden is still well in the lead in the Electoral College and is now president-elect and has been so since Pennsylvania was called. Biden with 306 electoral votes, Donald Trump with 232. If everything remains as it is right now, that will be the outcome of the election.
A coalition of federal agencies is now refuting President Trump's baseless claims of election fraud.
calling this the most secure election in American history.
And while the election isn't certified yet, President Trump is already talking about the next one. A person familiar with those talks tells NBC that he told advisors if Joe Biden is certified as the winner of the election, President Trump will soon be announcing that he's running for president again in 2024.